Hey everybody, it's Amico of hoopswire.com. How you doing? Just wanted to uh, introduce myself before we get started. For those of you who don't know me, which I would imagine is quite a few of you, I've been covering the NBA for about 20 years now, out of Cleveland, mostly the Cavaliers. I've worked for CBS Sports, Fox Sports Ohio, Sports Illustrated. Uh, I think there's a few others in there, but I also now am running my own website, hoopswire.com, which you should be able to find anywhere on your phone or internet. And, it's really been growing. Thanks a lot to most of you guys. So, been covering the Cavs now since 2007. The first year I covered them full time, they went to the NBA Finals. So that was great. And then I think it was 2010 when LeBron James left. And after that, when he left, I became the losingest writer in the NBA for a while until he came back in 2014. So I also co-hosted a show with Jeff Phelps on Fox Sports Ohio from 2014 to 2018. So anyway, just wanted to say thanks so much for 330 to go for having me. And it's just been, I've been following the page for probably 6-8 months now very closely. So when they asked me to come on and do this, naturally I was very excited. And with the Cavaliers, of course, being as hot as they are, they're 18-2 through since the start of the year, have been 18-2, the best record in the NBA. They're really cruising right now. They're in the All-Star break. And I can tell you this, having done live television before, the things I couldn't do on live TV, I can do some of that here, which I will probably do, stuff like sneeze, yawn, get a drink, all the stuff you can't do on live TV. The similarity between this and live television, of course, is here I can't use the bathroom and there I couldn't use the bathroom. So we're going to keep rolling through this as best we can. And thanks so much for joining us. Every Thursday night, 6 o'clock, we'll do this throughout the season. There's a lot of different topics we can cover. Mostly we're going to focus on the Cavaliers, but I'd be happy, as we do at hoopswire.com, we cover the entire NBA. So I'll be happy to take any questions you might have about the league as a whole. So right now, let's focus on the Cavs. 18-2 since the start of January, the best record in the NBA. They've been playing team basketball, really defending. They've had, over the last 2 weeks, the fortune of good health, right? Which they did not have at the beginning of the season. And that's a big difference. And, when you have good health, especially with the team that Kobe Altman, president of basketball operations, put together this season, already had your core four, right? Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. Already had all those guys. Then he added Max Strus and George Niang, who I know some of you are frustrated with from time to time if you're a diehard Cavs fan. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter who plays well individually as long as you're winning as a team. And the Cavs have the luxury of a really deep roster, along with a real superstar in Donovan Mitchell, who, if you read hoopswire.com, has said he thinks he's in the top 3 or 5 for NBA MVP candidates this season, which I certainly would tend to agree. Before we go any further, I did get a question from my Cavs on the Break podcast co-host, and I forgot to mention the Cavs on the Break podcast that I am on almost every week. But anyway, that's Chase Smith, who's asking a question. There we go. Will you still be on the Cavs on the Break podcast? Chase, you and I can negotiate our contract after this show, and I'll let you know. No, I'm just kidding. Of course I will be. And listen to this, guys. If you are a fan of the Cavs on the Break podcast, which I strongly encourage you to listen to on Apple Music or Spotify or wherever. Chase and myself are on there, as are John Sable. There's a whole host of podcasts. Kenny Rhoda, Michael Ray host their own show. I will tell you this: Saturday at Whitey's Restaurant in Richfield, Chase, Kenny, Michael Ray and myself, we will all be there. So, and it's free. And Chase will have the information for you on his Facebook page. I have the link on my Facebook page that you can check out. It's just Sam Amico. I also run it on my Amico Hoops Facebook page. It's free, but as Chase always reminds you, you do need to get reserve seating. And that Saturday night at 6:00, we always do this. Not always, but we try to do it before, during the All-Star break, All-Star weekend. We record a live podcast, and we'll have you there to hopefully answer some questions, talk Cavs, talk the NBA as a whole. So as for you, Chase, yes, we will. We'll discuss my contract after the show. But excuse me, going back to the Cavaliers, obviously, this is really the best basketball I've seen them play without LeBron James on the team. And that's going back, quite a ways to the Mark Price era. Excuse me. Going back to the Mark Price era, and that's fitting because today is Mark Price's 60th birthday. And I have no qualms about mentioning his age because Mark tweeted it out a little bit earlier. So Mark, obviously a four-time All-Star. I occasionally will go on Mark's podcast too. I've been on there 3 or 4 times now, so that's a big honor. And I can tell you this little secret about Mark Price. He is a huge Bee Gees fan. I don't know if anybody else knew that, but that's the inside scoop I have on Mark for his birthday. And of course, he was a multiple-time 3-point contest shooting champion. This year, Donovan Mitchell in the contest, which is also Saturday night. And I know a lot of fans are disappointed that Sam Merrill's not in it. So, that I think, frankly, that comes down to just Sam Merrill not being a big enough name for them to have it in it, which I find kind of interesting because, who remembers last year's slam dunk competition winner was Mac McClung, who's not even in the NBA. He's in the G League. So I was a little surprised that, when I heard, well, Sam Merrill's not necessarily a big enough household name to be in the 3-point shooting contest, which, of course, if you're a Cavs fan, that you think that's hogwash, and I don't blame you. But, as far as the entire big picture goes, it couldn't go any better. I was asked earlier, Frank Wharton, a guy I went to high school with, asked me on Facebook if I really think they're championship contenders. And my answer to that is, why not? You look at last year, the Miami Heat, number 8 seed, the last seed in the Eastern Conference, advanced all the way to the finals. That to me says, it really is wide open. And I feel like it's that way again this year. Boston is obviously the number 1 seed. Well, guess who's the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference right now? That's the Cavs at 36-17. So, when you talk about the way that the Cavs have been playing lately, and not even always with good health, because we know Darius Garland was out with a broken jaw for at least a month. Evan Mobley missed 6 weeks following minor knee surgery. And the Cavs really started this hot streak then. Without Mobley and Garland, they won 8 straight, right? And then lost a game at Milwaukee, came back 2 nights later, started a new streak at Milwaukee, won 9 straight before somehow losing to a very shorthanded Philadelphia team on Monday night. So if you take away those 2 losses there, you're talking, 19, 20 in a row. And they've really had a chance to win all those games, within the last 2 minutes they were in the game of every one of those games. Philadelphia, the game they lost at home, was a disappointment and a stunner. But Darius Garland had a wide open look to win it with a three from the corner. Shot just bounced away. So, and they didn't look great against the Bulls on Wednesday, but I think that you factor in the All-Star breaks coming up. Guys are ready to go into the next phase, get the break, get some rest during the break. I asked JB Bickerstaff if he was going to the All-Star game, and he said no way. He's going to go vacation a little bit with his family, step away from the game for a little bit, and kind of recharge and refresh. And I think that's where the team was, maybe mentally against the Bulls a little bit, just trying to, hey, let's get to the break. Playing the Bulls, who are struggling this year, doesn't excite anybody. But yet the Cavs, after trailing by 17, came back and won that game and looked pretty good in the second half. And that's really been their story. I talked to Isaac Okoro after the game, and one of the things he said after the game was, this is a team that just has a lot of fight. And Isaac said it's really like no other Cavs team I've been on, in terms of we always believe that we're the better team, no matter who we face, whether that's, hey, look, for the first time in history, or at least what seems like since I've been covering the Cavs, they swept Steph Curry's Golden State Warriors this season, beating them at home and then going to Golden State and beating them there. That's really, to me, was kind of the whole start of this team that, seeing their confidence, seeing their belief. And granted, Golden State's not what they used to be or anything close, but I think that just getting over that hump. Last year, the Cavs swept who? LeBron James and the Lakers, right? And I think that that's just part of the growth process, is beating these huge superstars, not just once in the season, but twice. This year, the Cavs lost to the Lakers at home, but there were some injury issues that game. And, I think that you don't have to worry so much about the Lakers and Golden State when it comes to the playoffs, because if you're the Cavs and you go to the finals, right, you're not going to have to worry about those two teams, because I don't think either one of them's getting there. So, as far as the Cavs go, if they just keep playing this way, I've been impressed, particularly when I sit obviously in press row. They still let me up there for some unknown reason. But I sit there and I talk to the other writers, and we've been marveling at how they've moved the basketball. Just not necessarily. Last year, I think it was too much Donovan Mitchell and not enough of the other guys, even though the Cavs won 51 games. I think that came back to haunt them in the playoffs. A lot of people will talk about the Cavs' lack of physicality against the New York Knicks, who, kind of swept the carpet with them in the first round. But that was an issue. Don't get me wrong. The Cavs weren't nearly physical enough. But I will say this: I thought that really the Knicks and Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau just completely removed Donovan Mitchell from that series by double and triple teaming him, and then the next thing you're leaving it up to guys who were really playoff rookies in Evan Mobley, Darius Garland. Jared Allen had barely had any experience in the playoffs. And same thing for Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, a playoff rookie. All of those things factor in. And if you look at who wins in the NBA and gets to the finals, it's usually what? Veteran teams, right? So that's something that the Cavs needed to go through, in my opinion, was a team that just got a taste of the playoffs. Now this year, I think it would be a disappointment if they did not get out of the first round. But the East is very tight. These teams are very close in talent and personality, and it's not going to be any cakewalk if you're the Cavs and getting out of the first round. The teams, right around them, which are obviously Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, once they get Joel Embiid back, and then, the Knicks again, and the Miami Heat, all of those teams and the Cavs are all kind of bunched together in terms of the standings. So if I'm the Cavs, what I'm hoping for is to avoid them by remaining in the second or third spot in the Eastern Conference, because I think the Cavs would do much better in the playoffs against a team like Indiana, Atlanta, some of those teams that are in the 6-7 range, or really 7-8 range or play-in range. I would like to see, frankly, the Cavs play the Orlando Magic, who are having a really nice year in the first round, because then Orlando would be the team that is younger than them. So, really, we've got a little ways to go before the playoffs, but I really believe that the Cavs can hang on to this number 2 seed. Milwaukee has been, for Milwaukee, with the team with Giannis Antetokounmpo, has just been very sporadic. So I think that, if you're the Cavs, and you don't have to win 18 of your next 20, you only have to win, say 75% of your games. You don't have to win 90% of them. So I think that there's a lot of room here for them to not play quite as well, for Cleveland not to play quite as well, and still hold on to that number 2 seed. And I can tell you this, my buddy Chase Smith at Cavs on the Break was really kind of freaking out at the beginning of the year with the way they were playing, and they were playing around 500. And I told him, don't worry. All that matters is what happens really after the All-Star break. Okay, so I guess that applies a little bit to them having won 18 of 20. You factor in that they might be able to continue this kind of upward trend after the All-Star break. Kevin McHale from the Boston Celtics once told me, well, he didn't tell me, I read it. It was Kevin McHale. I'm old, but I'm not old enough to have covered the NBA when Kevin McHale was a player. But one of his great lines when he was with the Celtics, of course, teammates with Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, he said that all that matters is you play well in May and June. And really, you think back to those teams, those Celtics, they actually had that kind of mentality. It's play well enough during the regular season to give yourself an advantage in the playoffs with home court as well as you can. But really what matters is you play your best in May and June. And if you think about last season, I bet 2 weeks before the finals, nobody said the Miami Heat are going to be facing the Denver Nuggets and the Denver Nuggets are going to win the championship, right? Nobody was predicting that. And here they were. That's exactly what happened, because those two teams played their best when it meant the most, really found a stride and a groove like the Cavs have right now. And what's important right now about the Cavs groove isn't that it's going on right now. It's that they're proving to themselves that they can do this. And that's really what I see, when you talk about the difference between this year's team and last year's team, isn't just that they're more physical, which they are. That's been a point of emphasis for the Cavs. But what the big thing to me is the belief. And I can see it, that they think, look, if we defend, which they've really been doing very well lately, and if we defend really well and we move the basketball, and, people are still all going to get their shots and get their points, but yet we're going to win, and we're going to set ourselves up for really good things. This is a very deep team too. 10 players deep when healthy, maybe 11 if you count Craig Porter Jr., maybe 12 if you count Tristan Thompson, which, he's serving his suspension. He'll be back toward the end of the year. Playoffs, you usually only play 8 guys. You might be able to squeeze in a 9th. So the great news about that is Cavs have great depth. Their depth is much better than it was last season, not just from the newcomers like Strus and Yang and Sam Merrill, who shot up out of nowhere this season. But it's nice that you have, if one of your main guys goes down, if Garland goes down or Mitchell goes down, maybe Merrill or Dean Wade or those guys haven't played in 3 or 4 games. Well, now all of a sudden they're ready to step in. They've proven that they can do what needs to be done when they're called upon, which is really what's great about this team when it comes to depth. Depth doesn't mean playing 12 guys every night. It means, do we have 12 guys who we are confident in? And you know what? Most teams, that answer is no. But the Cavs, the answer without question, so far, especially since the start of January, is a resounding yes. Because guys like Sam Merrill and Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro and Karis LeVert, guys who you don't think are necessarily, you don't. They're not part of your core four, but they're very important pieces, and they've all played very well from time to time. Last night against the Bulls, for instance, Isaac Okoro had one of the best games of his career. He tied his career high with 4 3-pointers. And he's obviously always an excellent defender. I was always real iffy on Isaac coming into this season. Really was. I thought, boy, number 5 overall pick, just was not real thrilled with him. I just didn't think he was consistent enough. He last year in the playoffs, he did not play very much. So, and I think there was a good reason behind that. He just was not ready. This year, I've seen a different player. Are his numbers any better than in years past? Really not. But he contributes so much more. Here's a guy who doesn't need the ball. And when you're talking about a team with 4 guys who do kind of dominate the ball, and Garland and Mitchell and Mobley, and to a lesser degree, Jared Allen, who's been fantastic with rebounding and all that. Guys like Okoro and Merrill and Wade, and those guys are very valuable in the sense that they don't need the basketball to contribute. So I have a few questions here. And by the way, I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but I'm very honored to be a part of this because, like I did say, I've been following the page for a long time. I don't know that I said that I'm real thrilled to be able to be doing this. So I do have some questions rolling in. Jessica, I'm sorry, I have to look a little closer now that I've been covering the Cavs 117 years and staring right into the laptop. My eyes are going bad, to be real honest with you. And when do the Cavs play next? Jessica wants to know. Tomorrow night? No, they actually are on break until. That's a great question. I should know the answer, but I think they're on break until next Thursday, maybe. But definitely at least Wednesday. Everybody's headed to Indianapolis this weekend for the All-Star game. There are 2 NBA games tonight, and then that's it. Then they don't come back until next week, the middle or late next week. And you know what? It's really cool to I think for the players and the coaches. It used to be All-Star weekend used to be the players and coaches were off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then they started playing again Tuesday. Now they've made it a week-long thing, just to kind of get everybody ready for that stretch run. Really having covered the NBA for so long, I can tell you that the players kind of look at March, the after the All-Star break, and especially March when college basketball takes over the world for March Madness. They kind of look at that as the dog days of the season. So, this is something that will get them recharged theoretically and get ready for a playoff push. If you're the Cavs, again, to me, you've got to win 75% of your games, even 65, because you're in such a good position that you can maintain that number 2 or 3 seed and have home court advantage and a favorable matchup. I really think if you're the Cavs and you get that number 2 seed, you're going to sweep whoever's your first round opponent, because it's going to be Orlando, probably, or somebody who comes in through the play-in tournament, which would be in Atlanta. And the Cavs always seem to have their way in with Atlanta, not always in Atlanta, but against Atlanta. And I don't know if you guys know this. I'll throw out some trivia while I'm rambling on here, but the woman from Seinfeld is the Atlanta Hawks owner. I don't know if you know that. Not Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but the girl who was in the Can You Spare a Square episode, and I can't remember her name. But she is now the owner of the Atlanta Hawks, and I've actually seen her a couple times in the press conferences when she's addressing the team. And of course, I want to ask her during the press conference if she can spare a square, but I haven't done that because I hope to keep my press pass for a few more years. But so there's there's some trivia for you. Rob keeps asking questions, and I'm sorry, I can't I can't get to him or can't see them yet, Rob. I could see your name, but I did see. It's funny. The one thing I was able to read was you're thrilled to have me. So it's kind of funny how that works. I can't read anything else you've said, but I did notice that. So thank you. I'm very thrilled to be here, and we're going to keep doing it throughout the season. And the more we go, the more that we will have reader interaction and listener interaction. And Rob says no questions, just comments, all good. So thank you, Rob, for joining. We really have had quite a bit of buzz, I would say, about this team. Really, I did not think, to be honest with you, when LeBron James left, I thought it would take a decade, for this team to get back to really respectability. But they've been back there really for a year and a half, maybe 2 years now. Certainly this season, with the way that they have really just played inspiring basketball. Last night I was talking to a couple of the guys in the media room, and I'm usually one of those guys who's a little skeptical, not necessarily the way I write and what I say on the podcast or when I go on television. I don't necessarily express skepticism then, but usually, when we're talking to the other media guys, I'm a little bit skeptical. But I'll tell you what, one of the other media guys last night asked me about this team, and they said, what do you think about these guys? Do you think they got a shot? And my answer, and I wrote that this morning on in my column, is I believe this team is legit. I really do. I don't normally say that. I don't know that I said that about as much as I love them. I don't know I said that about the Cleveland Browns going into the season, and we all saw what happened there. That was pretty cool with Joe Flacco. But with this team, I thought, they'll probably hover around 4, 5, 6 most of the year. And here we are, more than halfway through the season, and they're in the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they've got the best record in the NBA since in 2024, 18-2. So, the reasons are many, and I just think that the sky's the limit, really, for this team this season. I will say this. Because the Eastern Conference is so tight and there's so many veteran teams in there, like Boston, went over them all already, Milwaukee, the Knicks, and Miami. Those 4 teams, all 4 of them, and I would throw the Cavs in there, are teams that are capable of getting to the finals this year. I think, the Cavs aren't clearly better than any of them. They're not clearly worse. And I know Miami's been up and down, but that's just the way they roll until the playoffs get here. Then they're a different beast. So those are the 5 teams that are truly in the mix to me to get to the finals. And I think that the Cavs truly could come out of the East. They might need some help. I think they might need somebody else to knock off Boston. But we haven't really seen them really how well they match up against Boston when they're fully healthy. So they did go to Boston and played that nasty back-to-back in Boston and lost both of them earlier this year. But that was before they were the team they are today. So there will be a lot of things that could transpire between now and the playoffs. But I think if they keep rolling and stay healthy like they are right now, they're going to be in good shape. So I don't know that I have much more to add without any. What's the buzz on Caitlin Clark from Olivia Justice? You know what? I would have to go back to. I don't watch a ton of college basketball, but I have watched more women's basketball than I ever have in my life because of Caitlin Clark, who, of course, is at the University of Iowa. I go back a ways to when I think about, like, you're talking about all-time great women's basketball players, Cheryl Miller, who, of course, is the sister of NBA legend, Pacers legend, Reggie Miller. I go back to that when I think about what Caitlin Clark is doing right now at Iowa and what she's doing really for women's basketball, which was already kind of coming on the map quite a bit. Now it's just exploded, and she's a big reason why, and the women's NCAA tournament is a big reason why. I know Ohio State's got a pretty good team this year too, so I think it's great. I love watching her play. I mean, you talk about somebody who's not only a pretty good athlete, but just so fundamentally sound. She kind of reminds me of Steph Curry, the way that she's able to do. And I know that's not a real popular name around these parts, trust me. But I think I think her game is similar to that in that she can score anywhere on anyone, anytime, and really like her personality too. Very positive kid. So I think that's really cool. Okay, and here's a question from Mike that says, Boston. Oh, maybe it's just a statement. Either way, I like it, Mike. It says Boston will fizzle. New York has struggled as of late. And do I think this is the best team since 2016? Yes. Yeah, I do. I think this is the best Cavs team. Not only since 2016, Mike, but I also think it's probably the best Cavs team. Let's say we remove LeBron James from the equation. Let's say, heaven forbid, he was never here and the Cavs never won a championship or whatever. But I think that this is the best Cavs team since the Mark Price era, since Price, Doherty, Nance. I know the couple years there in the late 90s with Sean Kemp, they went to the playoffs and they had some nice teams there. But I think that this is the best. If you remove LeBron James from the equation, this is really the best team that the Cavs have had in 30 plus years. That said, I will say this. I think this team is certainly better than the 2007 team with LeBron that went to the finals. A lot of people don't remember that team, but that team had guys like Sasha Pavlovich, Larry Hughes. I think Eric Snow from Canton was on that team. So, yeah, those were the guys back then, and I think that this team's superior to that. So, yeah, Olivia said she agrees with everything I said on Caitlin Clark. And that's a key to me not booting you out of the comment section, is agreeing with everything. No, I'm just kidding. But no, she's quite a player, that's for sure. But as far as this Cavs team goes, I think that, barring significant injuries, some sort of unforeseen meltdown, the one thing I like about this team is I don't think that they are capable of meltdowns. Kobe Altman went out and got guys who, and covering this team a long time, I've never seen this little drama and this much fun in the locker room. Everybody gets along. They really admire Coach JB Bickerstaff, who I will tell you, I think is in running for, if the season ended today, he's got to be one of the top 2 or 3 under consideration for NBA Coach of the Year, probably along with Joe Mazzulla in Boston, Mark Daniel in Oklahoma City, and Chris Finch with the Minnesota Timberwolves. All of those guys have really done a magnificent job. And there was a point this year where JB Bickerstaff was probably, in fact, I can tell you without question, was actually on the hot seat. And that's why I favor, don't just overreact and fire a coach or make a trade. Sometimes the best thing that you can have is stability. We look at the Denver Nuggets, who, their coach, Mike Malone, who used to coach in Cleveland as an assistant under Mike Brown, they were ready to fire him. They were ready to fire him like four years ago. Well, now it's been 8 years, and Mike Malone led that team to a championship. So I think there's a lot to be said for stability and consistency within your organization. There are times you have to make a change and let somebody go, but I think that at this point, JB Bickerstaff's done a magnificent job. He's one of the few coaches. I'm kind of paid, at least have been through the years, to kind of look at the team with a critical eye, maybe a little bit. Like why are they doing this? Why is he playing this guy and not this guy? I haven't really had that question with JB really at all this season, even when they were decimated by injuries. People will will email me or text or whatever, get my notifications and say, why isn't Sam Merrill playing more? Why isn't Craig Porter Jr. playing more? And those are fair questions, but there are only 48 minutes in a game, right? So you're going to have to sit somebody. You're going to have to you're going to have to you know if Merrill plays, then Craig Porter Jr.'s minutes are going to come at somebody else's expense, right? Or like Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell. And do you really want those guys sitting for long stretches? Probably not. Not regularly anyway. So, look, I think JB's done a great job in terms of fitting these guys in. Most coaches, again, 8, 9 guys deep. JB's trying to go 10, which is tough because you've got to explain to Isaac Okoro or Karis LeVert or Evan Mobley, hey, I'm gonna sit you guys a little bit longer so Sam Merrill can get some run a little bit longer, or Dean Wade, and that sometimes that's okay depending on matchups or whatever. But most nights, you want to play your main guys and the guys who you're counting on to take you not just to the playoffs but beyond and make a deep run. So I spend a lot of time explaining why certain guys aren't playing, when I really should be just having JB Bickerstaff explain it. But I seriously think he's in the running for top 3, top 4 NBA Coach of the Year candidates. And if the season ended today, I might give it to him. It's tough because you've got Oklahoma City, playing so well, which they've really been probably the most pleasant surprise in the NBA this year. Another team that lost all their superstars and have gone pretty young and have really found reason to play inspiring basketball, and they've been great. And I think their coach has a lot to do with that. So, but JB's certainly in the conversation, and I suspect if things keep going like this, he'll really have a good shot at winning that, and I think it's warranted. So, the play on the floor speaks volumes, and in the NBA, guess what? For coaching, here's what coaching is. You're a salesman. All of these guys have great X's and O's. Most of them are pretty good at in-game management. What you need to do is sell your message to the players and have them respect and admire you. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, as great of a guy as you are. Well, JB's personality just fits along with all these other personalities in uniform, and I think that really counts for a lot. I saw it with Mike Brown. I thought Mike Brown was an excellent coach. He just could not sell, his philosophy to his players, whether it was at the time his first run, LeBron James, or later Kyrie Irving, Deion Waiters, and that group. I thought Mike Brown was a great coach. Just nobody wanted to really pay attention to what he was selling. Now, of course, he's with the Sacramento Kings and doing very well there. And I think that Mike has admitted that he's grown as a coach too. So, and Mike's, I got to tell you, I've covered the league, like I said, for 117 years, but Mike is really, really, truly one of the good people in the NBA. Just a regular guy. My favorite line from Mike Brown last year when the Sacramento Kings won the Pacific Division was, they asked him how he's going to celebrate, and he said, "I'm going to, almost like Andy Reid with the Chiefs." He said, "I'm going to do what I always do. I'm just going to go home and kick back and maybe have a beverage and listen to my country music." So yeah, and I thought, yeah, that is Mike. If you know Mike Brown, that's who he is, and that's how he would celebrate. So, anyway, getting off topic here, talking about Mike Brown, but the current day Cavs are really the team that's really been, to me, just a joy to cover. Even when they weren't doing that well, because of the personalities on the team have made them a lot of fun. Donovan Mitchell's really one of the nicest superstars I've ever been around, and all the players that I've covered over the years have been really cool and really nice, but he's just like on another level, personable, very open, very honest. He doesn't hide. When they lost to Philly the other day, he just came out and said, yeah, we deserve to lose. I don't want to sound too harsh, make people upset, but we deserve to lose with the way we played. So it's almost good that Darius Garland didn't hit that shot, because then we wouldn't have learned from it. But so everybody on the team, Karis LeVert, one of the great guys that I deal with. I've covered Tristan now for a long time, so much so that when he sees me coming, he usually makes fun of me, which I strongly encourage. And you could certainly do that in the comment section too. So, well, I've been going 40 minutes. When Steve 330 to go first mentioned the possibility of doing this show, guys, here's what's funny is he said, you could make little reports, or maybe 2-minute things here and there, 2-minute hits here and there. And I was like, oh no, if I'm coming on, I gotta have at least 40 minutes, because I don't know when to shut up. I probably could go 2 hours, but I don't want to do that to you or to the site. And if you have an opportunity this Saturday, we would love to have you over at Whitey's for our Cavs on the Break podcast. And unfortunately, my good friend John Sable won't be able to be there from WJW Channel 8. But John has agreed, I think, to be. I told him I want him on here on this show as a guest, and it doesn't really matter whether he agreed or not. I'm just going to tell him you're coming on, so he will be on here at some point. And maybe potentially Chase Smith from Cavs on the Break. I've got some other guests in mind. Obviously, a lifelong friendship with Jeff Phelps. We grew up on the same street, and I used to ride my bike over there when I was 12, and he was in college. And we would look at baseball cards and all that. Kind of hang out. He was like the big brother I never had. Then we ended up co-hosting a show on Fox Sports Ohio from 2014 to 18. Just by chance. So I'm going to see if Jeff can find some time. Here's the interesting thing, though. The only issue with Jeff is he doesn't have Facebook. He knows about 330 to go. He knows about this show, but he doesn't have Facebook. So we'll work on Jeff a little bit. Until then, you're probably just stuck with just me. And there's a lot more, by this time next week, we'll have a lot more to talk about in terms of how the Cavs are, what their plans are after the All-Star break, what they're looking to do, what the schedule looks like. But right now, if I'm you and I'm a Cavs fan, I just celebrate. I just enjoy that. Whoever thought a Cavs team without LeBron James would be the best team in the NBA for a month, even just 1 month, over the course of a season. 18-2. Since 2024. That's really cool. So anyway, thank you for joining this first episode. I'm very excited about moving forward, what we're going to be able to do and what we're going to be able to talk about and the interaction. And I very much look forward to having more of your questions. And I'm going to range it, though. If I have to put on my old man glasses, I will. But I have no pride anymore, so we will do that. But thanks so much for joining, and I really appreciate everybody tuning in. And next week we will do it again, same time, 6:00. All right. Thanks a lot. Talk to you then.